All right, everybody's here, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. So obviously we're talking about down payment assistance today. Does everybody know what down payment assistance is?
Please. Today, I need extra cash.
All right, well, we'll teach you about down payment assistance today. Tell you a little bit about me because I know most of you know who I am, but maybe not a whole lot about me. So we'll give you a little bit of background today as well. So obviously this is me, Jessica Callison, mortgage broker, been in real estate since 2014. My goal is to help my clients and yours find financing their home a clear, stress-free, and fun experience. We want them to have a good experience so they come back. Doesn't matter because sometimes they're not ready to buy now, especially with the fluctuation in rates. We want them to have somebody that they can come back to and rely on to answer questions. A little bit about me. I got my real estate license in 2014. I started with Coldwell Banker Capital Gateway at the Davis Street office, which no longer exists. So for those of you who have been in real estate for a long time, you may know that. But if you have only been in for the last couple of years, you would not have seen that office because they merged with the Main Street and Mason Street offices. So I worked for them. I was part of the core group that actually opened up KW Vaca Valley here in Vacaville. I was then a team leader for KW Vaca Valley in 2020. Took some time off, decided that I missed real estate very desperately, as weird as that sounds. Came back and got my lender's license. I literally quit my job, signed up for my class, and took my test 17 days later and passed my MLS exam and became a lender. And so this is where I've been for the last 2 years of doing that, and I love it. All right, so down payment assistance programs are obviously programs that are designed to help subsidize loans for first-time home buyers that need help with funds for down payment, often provided through a government agency or private organization. So in this case, almost every down payment assistance program out there is for first-time home buyers. There are exceptions, but they are rare and they're normally done with through private financing through banks directly. They have their own programs. Windsor, for example, is one of the ones that has a program where you don't have to be a first-time home buyer. Kim.
Does each bank have a different definition of what a first-time home buyer is?
A lot of times, yes. Their requirements can vary based on like debt to income ratio. It can be their definition of first-time home buyer. So right now with CalHFA has two different definitions of what a first-time home buyer is. If you want to use CalHFA's traditional down payment program, it's you cannot have owned any property or had any ownership interest in real property in the last 3 years. If you're trying to do the CalHFA Dream for All program, it's completely different. You have to be a first generation home buyer, which means that your parents cannot own any property, or if they pass away, they could not own at the time that they passed away. So very drastically different scenarios. If your parents did not own, then you as an individual cannot have had any ownership interest in real property in the last 7 years. So you see how even within the same organization, there's drastically different expectations of what they say a first-time home buyer is. So there's different types of down payment assistance. But why do we need down payment assistance? Why would you need it?
You don't have any debt to put down.
Because you don't have money to pay, right? Or maybe you have enough money for either closing costs or down payment, but you don't have both, right? Saving money right now. Who's good at saving money in this room? Raise your hand. AJ, I got one. Yeah, your husband is very good at saving money. Colleen's good. How about on Zoom? How many of you guys are really good at saving money?
I love saving money.
Not like very. Shauna says not so good. Amanda says she's good.
I know.
I'm like, I know Amy is really good at saving money. Amy, are you still on?
I am still on.
What do you have just a quick second? Would you mind sharing how you guys ended up in your first house?
How we ended up in our first house?
Was it your first house or which house was it where you made the plan to save the money and move and did it?
Yeah, our first house was a disaster, so it wasn't the first one.
Was it the second one?
It was probably the second one. After the first
Okay.
one, so we were part of the crash. Here, hold on, let me start my video. We were part of the crash back in 2008, you know, when all the properties sunk. We had just bought a house at the height of the market, and we did not do it responsibly, and we did not save money for that one. So we ended up short selling that one, and then we rented. And for a while, we actually said we'll never buy a house again because we were so hurt over the whole experience. But we did rent, and then we decided that we'd be much smarter, and instead of buying our dream home, that we would save up money for the down payment, and that we would the starter home, and then we can. So I think that making sure that you've got some, I think saving is good. I think having a down payment is good. And I think talking with our buyers, especially those that are going to qualify for down payment assistance programs and stuff, about getting into an entry-level house, one that they're going to stay in for 2 years, and then they can gain equity in it, sell it, and then buy up and continue to do that until they get to their dream house, instead of buyers feeling like, well, I've got to get the American dream and I've got to buy the house right now. So we actually bought this teeny tiny little home in Winters. Was the first house that we bought after we short sold our property. And it was like 300 and some odd $1,000 at the time. And then we sold that one and took the equity from that and moved up to the next house, which is over in North Vacaville. And then we sold that one, gained quite a bit of equity on that one after 2 years, and bought our property on Elizabeth that we held for 3 years. And that was our country property that we thought was our dream home. But then we ended up selling that one, taking the equity from that one and paying cash for a house in Idaho. So forced savings accounts are fabulous. So if you can get into that first home, even if it takes down payment assistance to do it, and start with that starter home, and then it's like a forced savings account for you that can't save very well. How was that?
That's perfect. Thank you. I was like, so Amy and I were at Keller Williams together. And so when she went through this whole thing, like she was talking about it, she's like, I'm going to do it. And she did it. And I mean, she did it big. So thank you for sharing that, Amy. I appreciate it. So down payment assistance varies again, depending on where you're getting it from and how much that they will cover. So the amount will vary. Some of the mortgage programs don't require down payment at all. Does anybody know which mortgage programs do not require down payment? Anybody?
Yeah.
And USDA. Perfect. So coming up with this upfront cash may not be super easy for everyone, which is why down payment assistance grants, loans, and programs were created to help first-time homebuyers. One thing that people tend to forget about is even if you get this down payment assistance, you still have to have funds for closing costs, unless the market is currently allowing you to ask for seller credits. Okay. So who qualifies as a first-time home buyer? For most government and charity programs, they have strict definitions for who qualifies as a first-time home buyer. Again, if you have not had any kind of home ownership within the last 3 years, most state, federal, local government, and nonprofit programs consider you a first-time home buyer, even if you own a home before that 3-year period. So, and this includes grandma died, left you her house, you own a house. Doesn't matter that you didn't buy it. Because that is a question I have asked over and over again, because if you inherited a property, you're still technically a first-time home buyer because you didn't actually put cash down to buy a house, but they don't care. You have access to real property, you own real property, and so therefore you are not a first-time home buyer. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so how does down payment assistance work? As already noted, down payment assistance comes in the forms of grants, loans, and other programs. Typically reserved only for those who qualify as first-time homebuyers. As I said, there are some banks out there that will allow you to do down payment assistance programs, even if you're not a first-time homebuyer. But it is always on a primary residence. It is not on a second home, and it is not on an investment property. So they're run by a variety of different organizations, some of them federal, some of them state, some of them private. Eligibility is always determined. Well, I shouldn't say always, is normally determined based on your household income. CalHAPA has income restrictions and credit history, and it varies by state and program. And credit history applies to any loan you apply for. Okay. Normally what you're aiming for credit score, if you're looking at down payment assistance programs, is 660. There are some that will allow you to go a little bit below that. Minimum that I've seen is 620. But ideally, when you're talking to your buyer, you need to know whether they're sitting around 660 or not. If they're pretty close, normally we can figure out something with their credit to work with them. Sometimes we can't if they don't have a lot of credit history, or like they don't have a lot of lines on their credit. Then it's a little bit harder, but it just kind of depends on what we're working with. So you'll typically apply for the assistance, and this is just you apply with a lender. So you can put an application with me. I'm going to go through, I'm going to see what down payment assistance programs we have that fit the criteria that you've uploaded into your application. And that's how you're going to apply for it. Normally, you don't have to go to a separate entity to apply for the down payment assistance programs. So they will be required to do a home buyer education. So for CalHAPA, for a couple of the other bank-related down payment assistance programs, they have to take a home buyer educational class. And they have to complete that, and it is a fee, and that fee varies. Can be anywhere from like $50 to $200, but they are required to take it in order to get this money. And a lot of it is financial education. They want to make sure that you know what you're getting into when you step into these loan products. So, how much money you're awarded differs depending on the program. Some programs offer a percentage based on the price, the home sales price, while others cap assistance at a certain dollar amount. So right now there's a lot of things going around about getting to a house with only 1% down. Who's seen those? Right? Seems really enticing. But if you look at the details really closely on those, normally that other 2% or the amount of money that that lender is willing to put towards your down payment is like $4,000, because these programs are based on the majority of the rest of the country and aren't really ideally suited for Solano County or the counties that we normally work in. Our purchase prices are higher. So this is why we go through everything with your buyer to see what they qualify for. Oh, sorry, Shauna. I will stop walking around. It's me. Okay. So types of down payment assistance, loans, and programs. The first one is a grant. Does anybody know what a grant means without reading this? Free money, right? It's money that you don't have to give back. So it's considered a gift. And as it says, an important word of warning here. Some programs that are labeled grants by the organization doing the funding may actually create a second lien on your home. While nothing is inherently wrong with this, as long as you know what you're getting into, make sure to carefully read the terms associated with any agreement for down payment assistance before signing on the dotted line. You'll also want to ensure your lender is aware of the grant. Otherwise, you might end up with a silent second mortgage. Now, in most cases, your lender is the one who's going to be dealing with this anyway, so they're going to know about the grant. This really only applies if, like, I know in some of the other counties, there are city grants that you get directly from the city. And so if you've already been awarded one of those, or like if you're getting $1,000 grant from your real estate agent because you're closing on one of the programs when the charitable foundation is doing it through like NSCAR, then you need to let us know, because like your real estate agent might know about it and might have forgotten to tell me. And so then we need to know. And in most cases, those are true grants. They're not going to end up as a second lien, but this is a possibility. The other thing I should mention about grants, some of these grants are only grants if you live in the property for 5 years, which is another reason why you may end up with a silent second on your home. And then it's forgiven after that 5-year period of living in that property. So make sure that whoever you're working with, whoever your client is working with, is giving you all the details of this, because you don't want your client ending up with a second mortgage that they don't know about. They think that that money was free and given to them. They go to sell their house in 3 years and now they got to pay back 3% of their house. Okay. All right. Forgivable loans at a 0% interest. So this is either a grant or a forgivable loan. So depending on the verbiage with that bank, because Windsor has 2 down payment assistance programs. One is an actual grant. One is a forgivable loan, where if you stay in the property for X number of years, then it's forgiven. So 2 different products there. two different requirements with their debt to income ratio as well. So the freedom that you get, but these come, you're going to see them on the loan, on the LE, and you're going to see it with a rate of 0%. So participating lenders will forgive them, meaning the owners won't have to pay them back after a certain number of years. Often after 5 years, but some of them do have the option of making that forgiveness period as long as 15 or 20 years. Who's looked at the income restricted properties out in Winters? So on those, you're actually stuck in a 10-year term. You have to sell it back to that program. If you sell that house within the first 10 years, you can't just sell it on open market. So while this is not a down payment assistance program, it acts very similarly because they have those requirements to make sure that they're going to continue to move forward with allowing people that need the assistance to get into homes that they can afford. Angela, can you elaborate a little bit?
I did a typo. Was that like was it called the BMR? Is that what they're called? The below market value?
Yes. Yeah.
It's kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
once-
So they have,
So
go
once
ahead. I'm sorry.
But if
goes
you
into
keep
that
it for long,
it stays
Sorry,
in that forever.
Yeah. So after that 10-year period, you can sell it normally, but until that 10-year period is up, you have to sell it back to the city of Winters.
Got it.
Yeah. Does somebody else have a question on Zoom?
I just didn't know if any of that equity, like, so they have to sell it back to the city, or do they get to sell it and have to share in the equity gain?
So they're actually limited on what they can sell it for and how much equity they can make on those houses. And I don't remember the details on it. It's something I would definitely check into. I don't even know if does anybody know if they still have some of those houses left in Winters? It's been a while since I've been out there.
They did last year,
Okay.
but I don't know if they do now.
Yeah. Claudia was just saying she thinks they're all gone, but I know that they had really strict rules and I have them somewhere. So if I find them, I'll definitely shoot them out to you guys.
They have in American Canyon,
Mhm.
it's a BMR, and the seller will keep the equity, but the HAFA will determine how much they would sell it, and also person should be qualified to
Okay.
purchase that.
So
Restriction.
Eva is saying that in American Canyon, they have a BMR, and the price that they can sell it at is restricted by the program. The seller gets to keep whatever they have as far as equity, but the sales price is limited by the program. Okay, and Davis has it too. So there's definitely an equation. If you're not familiar with them, make sure you're doing all your homework on it prior to taking your clients. Because you don't want to take a client that you think can get into that house and then it turns out they can't qualify.
Those you have to do it qualified for the city first, and it takes time. So if your client finds one of those houses and wants to put in an offer, it's pretty much a no-go, because you have to get approved by the city first.
Okay, and Kim just added that normally you have to get approval through the city first prior to your clients even being able to write an offer. So this is a good reason. If you're not familiar, again, reach out to your office mates because lots of them have experience in this matter. All right, next up is deferred payment loans at 0%. So it says you might also qualify for a second mortgage with a deferred payment. These second mortgages are typically for a loan amount large enough to cover your down payment. And you don't have to repay these second loans until you move, sell, refinance your first mortgage, or pay down your first loan. Deferred payment loans are never forgiven, so you'll have to repay them if you ever leave your home, and you'll usually cover the repayment of the loan through the proceeds from the sale of your residence. So back to the California Dream for All program. Does anybody remember the big stipulations on those that was really important to tell your client about? The Dream for All program. Yeah, you have to pay back the 20%. That is due at the time that you sell that home. Not only that, but it's an equity share program. So therefore, you are also giving them 20% of the equity in your home on top of paying back that 20% that you borrow. So hopefully, if you got your client into one of those homes, it was the best decision for them because there are people that program is very right for. And there are people that are not, but people get really excited about that. I'm getting 20%, like, this is amazing. This is what I want, but it's not always the best option for them. 'Cause normally, if you really, really, really need that 20% because you have no ability to save money at all, the chances of you having that 20% at the end is slimmer just because of the fact that those are the same buyers that have a tendency to refinance their home over and over and over again to take money out of their equity, to pay off their credit cards, to pay off student loans, to pay off the debt that they continue to accumulate. So make sure you get to know your buyers fairly well. Claudia?
Are you allowed to refinance once for free?
No,
No, not at all.
nope. Yeah. If you refinance, so it won't be with the Dream for All program, you'll be refinancing into normal and your money's due at the time that you refinance.
And
Yeah.
if I could just add something, Jessica, this is Kara.
Yeah, please do.
So the whole purpose of that program also is, and the reason why they have you do pay back the 20% is so that they can continue to fund other loans. So the whole idea of this big, large amount being put in there is now they're able to do this for a lot more homeowners as well. So the program wants to continue on, and the way they have it set up with the payback is so that they can keep money in the program, and it won't just end and be done. It will continue to help buyers get in. So just thought I'd throw that out there.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. The upside.
Because yeah, that is the upside, is that it will allow it to continue going on, which we want, because homeownership in California is not always the most affordable.
No, and typically over the years it has, it's always gone up, right? So
Yes.
it's just getting in the door with that 20%. This helps you do that. And then you can reap the rewards of home ownership, like Amy's story, where once you're in the door, then you can just keep, buying the next, buying the next, buying the next. So.
Yep, exactly.
Also,
Yeah,
Jessica,
go ahead.
first home that we bought in Winters after we bought after the short sale, that one was in their low income housing program. So we did have to get permission from the city of Winters to sell the property. And for the first 3 months, we could only market it to people that qualified for low income, and there were restrictions on the resale. It had to be considered reasonable for the family size that would live in that house as far as resale value.
Nice. Perfect. Thank you, Amy.
Absolutely.
Awesome. The next option for down payment assistance are low interest loans. So your lender, and when they say lender, they're not talking about me. They're talking about lender as in the bank. Okay. So your lender or another organization might offer you the opportunity to take out a second mortgage loan at the same time your first mortgage is finalized. You can use the funds from this loan to cover your down payment. You'll have to repay this loan in installments, usually when you make your monthly payments on your first loan, and this means you'll be making 2 mortgage payments each month. The goal is to get a low interest rate on these loans. Some lenders or organizations might even offer such loans with no interest rate at all. So couple of different options. You guys, some of you have been in the business long enough, and you can see it on the CalHFA website. But when it first came out and everybody was giggling over what they're called, and the joke was you could get a Zip Zack Zork on your loan to help pay for the down payment. And that wasn't the name of it, but nobody could keep it clear what it is. But it's very clean on the CalHFA website. You can get the 2% or the 3% down, and they come with a low interest rate on that second mortgage. And so depending on which one you go with, we'll calculate what that interest rate is, but allows you to get in, and it's never as high, normally around 1%. For that second loan versus what your typical mortgage would be. All right, so there's always some questions that come with down payment assistance. And these are the top 5. How long does it take to get down payment assistance? The amount of time it takes to get down payment assistance depends on the program and the type of assistance. Each state offers its own programs, as do cities and organizations. These programs move at different speeds depending on their size and demand for them. So if any of you have done loans with CalHFA before, when CalHFA gets really, really busy, your escrow time extends. How many of you have had that happen? Anybody? No? So that's one thing you should know is when they're through the state or they're through another government agency, they can take longer. So make sure that your lender is letting you know if that's going to affect your closing timeline, because if you are in a competitive situation and you need a 21-day close and we have CalHFA or we have another down payment assistance program that I know is going to take longer, I'm going to tell you, your client doesn't have the ability to do that. We can push for it and try and reach it, but I cannot guarantee that because I can't guarantee how fast that agency is going to move. Mark.
In general, what's longer? 30 days longer, 60?
It really depends on how backed up they are. CalHFA has gotten much more streamlined in their efforts, so they're not taking nearly as long. Normally, you can close a CalHFA still in about 21 days if your lender is doing their job and getting everything submitted up front like they should be. But if you have a lender who hasn't worked with CalHFA a lot, that's normally more where you run into the program, the extension of time, and it's because they wait to submit their documentation. And then that delay can be anywhere from like a week to a month. Yeah. Will down payment assistance affect my closing timeline? This is what we were just talking about. It's important to know that it may take longer to close on your home if you apply for down payment assistance. The assistance program must work with your lender to secure the loan and the down payment funds. This can add time to closing process depending on how quickly the down payment assistance program acts. So depending on who you're going with, just make sure that your lender knows what that timeline is going to be. And if they don't off the top of their head, have them call. It's okay if they don't know. If they're not doing a lot of down payment assistance, just make sure that they're doing the research for you so that you and your client are getting the best experience that they can. What do I need to qualify for down payment assistance? The two most common down payment assistance qualifications are a minimum credit score of 620. Again, I would say aim for 660. And an income limit that satisfies the program's requirements according to. Many programs also consider your debt to income ratio. So CalHFA goes back and forth on its down payment assistance, whether it's at 50 or 45. Right now it's at 45, which can seriously diminish your borrower's buying capacity. Because if you do, let's say like a regular FHA loan, I can normally go up to just under 54%. That's another 9% of debt that your buyer can have to get that house. Or it's another 9% that you can add on to that monthly mortgage payment that allows them to go up. So other common requirements vary by program, but may include the following. The home must be in specific locale or county. You must be a first-time home buyer. You must attend a class on home buying and finances, and you must live in the home for a certain number of years, often 3 to 10. How can I apply? So start by researching the programs available in your area. As I said, I know that when you head out to the Bay Area, some of those cities have down payment assistance programs that work directly with the city. And so you have to reach out and find out how to apply for those. If you're applying for something like CalHFA or a program that's offered by a bank, then you're just going to have your client fill out a mortgage application just like they would at any other time. And then we're going to go looking for the program that best suits them. Okay. Can I get additional down payment assistance with an FHA loan? While the Federal Housing Administration doesn't offer its own down payment assistance, you may still be able to get help with your down payment through a program. And then it says, take note, assistance with closing costs on FHA loans is capped at 6%. So for an FHA loan, you must put up some of your own money, but most of the down payment programs will work with FHA loans. Most of our down payment programs that are offered through our banks are FHA programs. They're not conventional. They're not VA. VA doesn't need down payment. So almost all of them are FHA. It's very rare that you get conventional. CalHFA is really the only one that I've seen where you have both a conventional and FHA option. And now it's just question time. What other questions do you guys have for me?
I also see like a payment of somebody using like a CalHFA loan versus like a typical just like FHA loan and, you know, not putting the money down, like having the two mortgage, like two,
Yeah,
loans versus-
so I'll tell you this, I don't have any written down for the localities, but like for our, like Windsor that I keep mentioning, their interest rate on their down payment assistance program is 8.125. Oh, sorry, let me move back over here. It's 8.125 on the Windsor programs. while CalHFA's interest rate varies based on what the actual rates are doing. The bank ones tend to not vary. And so you're working with a higher interest rate. And it's really going to depend on like taxes, all of that. But last time I looked, and I know interest rates are back up right now, but I ran one in December. Windsor was 2% higher than CalHFA was at the time. Yeah, which means that you're looking at a payment that's in most times is going to knock that buyer out of qualifying. But the benefit to the Windsor one is it's FHA standard. So you can go up to a normal FHA debt to income ratio versus being held back by the 45% with CalHFA. 45% really doesn't give you a lot of wiggle room on purchase price. Normally on our front end, when we're looking at the debt to income ratio for just your housing payment, we can normally go up to 47. So, and most people are over 35. They're between that 35 to 47 mark on just their housing payment. So if you have a total debt to income ratio with CalHFA of 45%, most of the time your borrowers are going to be at a price range where they are not really excited about buying, if that makes sense. Or they have to move their search area. And I'll run you some numbers, Rebecca, and I'll shoot them over to you. If anybody else wants those numbers, just shoot me a thing and I will I'll send them over to you also. Yep. Carly has it. So I will ask Carly if she will please send it out. I got 2 more people. Okay. Any other questions? Do you guys find that a lot of your clients are looking, or Eva, go ahead.
They just announced, not a question, they just announced at Solano Association of Realtors,
Mhm.
we have 60,000 grants that they're giving. And but then they said they will receive 1090
At the end.
at the.
Yes, for
So that's
taxes. How big of the grants are they doing? Are they the $1,000 grants again?
I believe so.
Kara, do you know the association grants that Eva's talking about? Do you know how much those are for?
Check with the Solano.
So we did offer the $1,000 grants, which are we have already gone through all of those, but we are after 2 years, we can ask for them every 2 years. So we will be asking again the next year. So not 2024, but 2025. And then I believe Solano Association got some grants too for Solano. And Eva might know better if those have been used up at that association.
Yeah, that's what she was saying. The Solano Association has some.
Yeah,
Okay.
so NSCAR is all, those are all gone.
Okay, perfect. Any other questions?